Hello and welcome to Slow Accent English. Here you can learn English by listening to simple stories. Listen slowly, relax, and learn step by step. If you like this video, please subscribe and like. Now let's start today's story. Today's story is called My Son Left Me Alone. Margaret was an old woman who lived in a small, quiet house at the end of a narrow street. The house was old, but very clean. On the walls, there were many photos of her son from when he was a child. Her son's name was David. Margaret loved David more than anything in the world. After her husband died, David was the only family she had. She worked very hard when he was young. She worked in a small restaurant during the day and cleaned offices at night. She was always tired, but she never complained. Everything she did was for her son. She wanted him to study, get a good job, and have a better life than her. And David did study hard. He was a good student, and Margaret was very proud of him. Years passed, and David went to university in another city. Margaret missed him very much, but she was happy because he was building his future. After university, David found a good job, got married, and had a child. Margaret did not see him very often, but she always told her friends, "My son is very successful. I am very proud of him." One day, David came to visit her. He looked around the small house and said, "Mom, you should not live alone anymore. You are getting older." Margaret smiled and said, "I am okay. This house is full of memories." But David said, "No, Mom. I want you to come live with me and my family in the city. You will have your own room, and you will not be alone anymore." Margaret was very happy when she heard this. That night she packed her clothes, her old photo albums, and her favorite books. She walked slowly around her house one last time, touching the walls and looking at the photos. This house was her whole life, but she was happy to start a new life with her son and his family. The next morning, David came with his car and helped her with her bags. They drove for a long time to the city. Margaret looked out the window and imagined her new life. She imagined eating dinner with her son and playing with her grandchild. But when they arrived, the car stopped in front of a large building. Margaret looked at the building and asked, "David, what is this place?" David did not answer immediately. Then he said quietly, "Mom, this is a place where people will take care of you." Margaret did not understand at first. Then she saw an old woman in a wheelchair near the entrance. She saw nurses walking in and out. And suddenly she understood. It was a retirement home. Margaret looked at her son with sad eyes. "But you said I would live with you," she said softly. David looked uncomfortable and said, "Mom, I am very busy. My wife works, I work, and we don't have much space at home. Here, people will take care of you. You will have friends here." Margaret felt her heart break, but she did not want to make problems for her son. She forced a small smile and said, "If you think this is better, then it's okay." David took her bag inside, talked to the receptionist, signed some papers, and put her things in a small room. The room had a bed, a small table, and a window. Margaret put the photo of David on the table next to her bed. Before leaving, David said, "I will visit you soon, Mom. I promise." Margaret smiled and said, "Drive safely." David left. Margaret sat on her bed and looked at the door for a long time. She thought he would come back the next day, but he did not. Days passed. Margaret started to know the other old people in the retirement home. Some of them had children who visited every week. Some of them had children who visited once a year. Some of them never had visitors. Margaret waited every day. Every time she heard footsteps in the hallway, she looked at the door. Every time the door opened, her heart beat faster. But it was never David. Weeks passed, then months passed. David never called. He never visited. Margaret still kept his photo next to her bed. Every night before sleeping, she looked at the photo and said, "Good night, my son." One day, a young nurse sat next to her and asked, "Margaret, why do you always look at the door?" Margaret smiled gently and said, "I am waiting for my son. He promised he would come back." The nurse did not know what to say. Margaret continued, "When he was a child, he was afraid of the dark. Every night he called me and I came to his room. I never let him wait." She looked at the door again and whispered, "Now I am waiting for him." Years later, Margaret was still waiting. She never stopped looking at the door. She never stopped loving her son. That is the sad thing about love. A mother will always wait for her child, even if the child never comes back. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and subscribe to Slow Accent English for more English stories. See you in the next story.